In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We hope you find our episodes inspiring, motivating, positive, and thought-provoking. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 99 of the No Quit Living podcast. I am your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is curiosity. Our quote of the day comes to us from Albert Einstein. I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. I'm very excited for today's episode. Our guest is a gentleman by the name of Patrick Bet-David. Patrick is a very successful entrepreneur that loves life and challenges things if and when he feels it is appropriate. He has a great no-quit story, and his honesty is very refreshing. I believe you will really enjoy today's episode. Patrick, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Brother, it's good to be on with you.
I appreciate your time. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. Now, I was curious if you had either a personal story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and didn't quit.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of them. But if I have to give you what gave birth to the rest of the decisions of not giving up, I would have to go back to the military. When I first joined the U.S. Army back in March of 1997, I went in, and prior to going in, all my friends in LA put a big party together for me. It was a private surprise party. Everybody came in. We had a great time. I was a big party guy. I was the guy that was friends with everybody. And so I go into the Army. I'm in boot camp. I'm in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And a first day goes by. Everybody's white, black, Hispanic, Asian. Nobody, literally nobody is from Iran. Not a single soul was from the Middle East. So I go in and I get, I have a bunk buddy, a guy named Wiggins, very good guy from Houston. He was also a troublemaker at that time. And so we team up. And by the second night, there was a very, very bad fight in the laundry room. Very bad fight. It was very ugly. And after the first 3-4 days, I had so many different fights that they pulled me in. The drill sergeant pulled me in and he says, listen, we don't think the military is for you. And they sat me in the room and they spoke to me, 3 guys. And they were very nice. They were not being jerks. They were not trying to use reverse psychology. They were just saying, listen, it just doesn't look like you joined because you want to be here. It looks like you joined because you have to be here. And so, look, why don't you go out? We won't give you a dishonorable discharge. It'll just be as if you never got into the military. It'll never show up in your record, nothing. But look, you just seem like you're not going to fit. You keep fighting everybody, and it's not a good place to be. And they put me in this room. I'll never forget this. And they said, this phone right here that I haven't had access to my family, friends for 4 days, they said, call anybody. And they know when they give you the phone, you're going to start reminiscing. So they give me the phone. I go and they say, call as many people as you want back at home. So I start off. My friends, hey, listen, what's going on? Oh, Pat, dude, what are you doing, bro? Why are you crazy? You know what happened? You know who was asking about you? She was asking about you. You got to come out, dude. This is like our prime time. Why the military? You're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And I'm talking to everybody. The only person I don't call is my dad. I call everybody. So they said that we want you to sleep on it and then tell us in the morning. I said, no problem. So I go to sleep. I've already made a decision. I'm going back. I'm never going to put up with this shit. This is miserable. I'm so sick of this crap. They're screaming at me. I've done more push-ups than anything else. I don't have weights right now. I'm just doing push-ups, sit-ups, calisthenics, all this stuff. I need some dumbbells. I need some bench press. I need some weights. And I go to sleep that night. I try to go to sleep. I can't go to sleep. And this is the time where Usher came out with a song, You Make Me Wanna, and My Way. I don't know if you remember that album that came out. Yep. And it was the same time where Blackstreet came out with a song, if you take your love away from me, I'll go crazy. So I'm listening to this thing on repeat. And it's just going. And it's back in the days, the CD player. It wasn't like the whole iPod deal. So I'm trying to sleep. I'm thinking all this other stuff. And I said, Pat, if you quit today and you go back home, yes, you will party, but you are most likely going to quit every single thing in your life that gets difficult again. Do you want that? And do you really want to face the look of your father that sacrificed everything with your mother to come to Iran, that cost them their marriage, to show that your son is a quitter? Do you really want to do that? Let me tell you, I couldn't sleep a single second that night. I woke up in the morning, got out of bed. I went to the drill sergeants and I say, I have an answer for you. And they say, what is it? I said, I'm staying in. They said, you're serious? I'm staying in. The entire attitude of these drill sergeants changed from being very nice to me to absolutely becoming jerks. Their entire goal became to make me get out of the Army. So they were 10 times tougher than me on everybody else. But I'm going to tell you something here right now. Till today, Drill Sergeant Pirtle, Drill Sergeant Green, I found them on Facebook. I found these guys online, and I send them messages saying, I am a man today because of how you guys pushed me for that 12-week period. And that habit, just so you know, Chris, that habit is what led to everything else in my life. As it got difficult, I hit that same breaking point, that wall. I made a decision to stick around. If it wasn't for that day, I'd probably be quitting a lot of other things in my life as well.
You know, that's an amazing story, and I think we probably wouldn't be talking right now if you had quit. So I'm glad, many ways, and selfishly for our listeners, that you didn't quit and kept on going.
Well, that's true. That's an accurate statement.
So I wanted to ask, if you had to define yourself in one word, what would that word be?
Oh man, a curious human being. If I had to define myself in one word, I would say curious human being. I'm always curious. I'm always wanting to learn. But then also on the other side, I'd probably say I'm a citizen of the world. Let me explain what I mean by that. There are 4 countries that mean a lot to me. 3 countries. One is a community because they lost their country 2,000 years ago. One is Iran because I was born in Iran. And that country means a lot to me. I lived there for 10 years. Iran used to have a beautiful history prior to the revolution that took place in 1979, February. Prior to that, Elizabeth Taylor used to date our ambassador of U.S., Zahedi. Prior to that, Sinatra used to perform in Iran. Prior to that, the richest people in the world would go and have their vacations in Iran. Iran was a beautiful, wealthy, rich, sexy, beautiful country in the 70s. In the 70s, top 3 countries for tourism, one was Burma, one was Cuba, one was Iran. Think about how much has changed in 4 decades, okay? And so Iran means a lot to me. The Assyrian community means a lot to me. The reason why I don't say a nation, because they lost their country a couple thousand years ago. I'm Assyrian. My last name is Bet David. That is my father. So that community means a lot to me. It's a small community of 4 million people out of the 7 billion living. But there used to be a time, the Assyrian Empire, they founded the calendar, the clock, a lot of different things. The Assyrians came out with the mercantilism, which is like capitalism. So they came out with this whole system. And then there's the Armenian community because my mother's Armenian. And the other side is U.S. because America gave me the opportunity to become who I am today. And so that's what I mean when I say I'm a citizen of the world. The message I'm sharing right now, my obsession with the concept of capitalism, having been born in a family of my mother being a communist and my dad being an imperialist, that gave me a whole different perspective of one side where my mother would say rich people are greedy, and the other side, my father would say poor people are lazy. And both of them make sense. And you're sitting there saying, who is right? So that kind of created this combustion of curiosity to go out there and say, who is really right? I mean, is it true that all these rich people, all they care about is themselves? And is it true that all these poor people are just lazy and they don't want to use their talents to go out there and make it a reality? Are they both wrong in a way? Are they both right in a way? And so that got me to be curious about the concept of capitalism. And so now, when I say citizen of the world, I want to make sure every single human being in the world has the ability to hear the argument on why capitalism and the concept of entrepreneurship could positively impact their nation. That's what got into my heart, and I just can't stop talking about it.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's a great backstory, and you definitely have a diverse upbringing, which is why you've been so successful. So speaking of success, I wanted to ask you, how do you personally define success?
I think it's alignment. To me, it's alignment. And what I mean by alignment, Chris, is, I was spending time with Gianluca Vacchi 4 weeks ago at his house. I don't know if you're familiar with Gianluca Vacchi. Gianluca Vacchi is a guy on Instagram. They call him the most interesting man in the world. He's got 12 million followers. He was in J Balvin's song, and he's the guy that comes out, starts dancing. Just a very eccentric guy. And, he ran a $3 billion company. His net worth's probably $300 to $400 million. He owns a lot of different companies. At 45 years old, he says, I'm done. I am done trying to go out there and becoming a billionaire. I have enough money to enjoy the rest of my life. He says, I hit a point where I realized in my 30s, I did not know I'm dying. He says, in my 40s, I realized I'm dying very soon here. He says, I want to live my life. And so I sat with him and we started talking. I said, so tell me about this thing here. What do you mean you want to live your life? Like you weren't living your life? Says, Pat, from 25 to 35, I did not take a day of vacation for 10 straight years. I says, come on. He says, Pat, not a single day of vacation for 10 years. I said, so what did I do to you? He says, well, I got married. I got a divorce. At 27, I got married. 30, I got a divorce. I wanted to follow the book. I wanted to do everything right. And it finally hit me that I was living for everybody else. And I wanted to live for my dreams, my goals, rather than trying to follow everything by the book. I said, so what happened all of a sudden? He says, look, I always wanted to be a DJ. I said, DJ? He says, yes, I always wanted to be a DJ. I always wanted to dance. I always wanted to act. I always wanted attention. I always wanted to entertain. I always wanted to make people laugh. I always wanted to make people feel good. I always wanted to be around people and laugh and stay up. I said, so what? And said, at 45, I decided to do it. I said, seriously? He says, yes. So I'm sitting and watching this guy and listen to what he's saying, okay? That same day, I spent time with Milo. I don't know if you know who Milo is. Milo is a extremely conservative, gay, Republican, libertarian. He calls himself the alt-right, who he and Ben Shapiro debate each other. Just probably one of the most controversial political figures right now in America, even more than Ann Coulter. And I sit and speak with him. And he tells me a story. He tells me his relationship with his father. He tells me his relationship with his mother. He tells me the stuff that he went through. Everything in his life is a debate. Everything in his life is him playing this role of the rebel, him playing this role of I am the opposition. I am the, I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to say stuff that nobody else is going to say. So I look at him. Then that same day, I'm at Vanilla Ice's place in Miami in the morning. And Vanilla Ice's interview comes out this Thursday, whatever the date is going to end up being. It's going to be in the third week of February. So I'm at Vanilla Ice. We spent about 3-4 hours together that day. And I ask him where he's at. Here's a guy that sells 165 million records. Ice Baby. He's like, to some people on one side where they say, oh, come on, man, play that funky music. White. And this guy, stole that song. So no one knows this guy's story. So I said, let's just get right into it, man. What happened with Suge Knight? What happened with Tupac? What happened with you? What happened with Arsenio? Did you really date Madonna? What is really your story? What are you doing today? Were you just a talent? Were you just a guy that was doing hip hop and breakdancing? And who are you today? And you realize this guy's got a business mind. When he got sued by the group that told him that you're using our song, he goes back and buys that song from him for like $3.5 million. So he buys the rights. Hey, this guy today sold 160. He's made so much money. He looked happy. The point is, every one of these guys have different views in life, but they're all happy because they are aligned with their views of life. So when you have a certain set of values and principles that you live by, and if you follow those certain set of values and principles in a way where you feel I am aligned, my behavior, my action is aligned with the values and principles that I live by, I am happy. You and I could be different, but we could absolutely live a fulfilled life as long as our behavior is aligned to our values and principles. And by the way, Chris, it is by far one of the most difficult things for people to do today, especially more than ever before, because today social media makes us do things to get more likes, more shares, more retweets, more, comments, more whatever. So sometimes we are not necessarily being ourselves. Sometimes we are becoming somebody that gets the most likes rather than being the most liked by ourselves.
I'm so glad you touched on that last piece because I could not agree more. And I think, unfortunately, social media is amazing for the ability to connect and share and build and grow. But to your point, I think a lot of us, and I'm definitely guilty myself, you focus on the likes and the shares as opposed to creating some of those real live relationships. And I have to just share with you full and fair disclosure. I was a guest on a podcast about a month and a half ago, and I was asked a very specific question, and he said to me, what's your all-time favorite song? And I said, Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice.
There you go.
So one of the things we're always looking to do is to add value to our listeners. And I was curious if you have either a morning or a daily ritual that you swear by.
Yeah, reading is what saves my life. I mean, if I don't do any reading or move my body, I'm just not in the right state. Yesterday, I'll just give you an idea. I came back. I was at Breckenridge this last 4 days. My wife's birthday falls on Valentine's Day, so we went to Breckenridge, and she's skiing and I'm trying to snowboard. I'm 6'4", 6'5", 240 pounds. It just makes no sense for me to snowboard. So I had a very bad fall. Okay, so I hit my head pretty hard on the ground, and I got up. I had like a small little concussion, and I get up. I kind of feel a little wild, weird. I'm walking a little loopy, but let me try to go up one more time. I go up one more time. Then I come back down. Then the next I say, I'm just feeling weird right now. I'm having a hard time with it. So I come back to LA. I come back to Dallas. And I'm over here, and my body is absolutely shutting down, okay? And it was yesterday. And I said, man, I didn't hit the gym yesterday, okay? I do my reading and my content pretty much on a regular basis. I said, I got to do something. So before heading home in my office, I got a gym. I went into the gym. I had my 45 minutes of cardio. My body moved. I sweat. I went home, and I felt better, and I slept like a baby. So for me, if there's two things I have to do on a daily basis, worst case scenario, 4 out of 7 days in a week, I got to move my body. One is exercising, one is reading books.
No, I could not agree more. I actually myself, I try to get to the gym 7 days a week, even if I have 1 or 2 days of light cardio. For me, it's just doing something and getting after it. And definitely reading is one of those things as well. So I want to change lanes here for a second. Assuming the 20-year-old version of yourself would have listened, what's the one piece of advice you would have given to the 20-year-old Patrick?
Don't overthink. Trust principles. Don't overthink. Principles are timeless. And what I mean by principles are timeless is the following. I was in India 5 weeks ago speaking at the IIT event with about 5,000 engineers. And if you're familiar with IIT is like the Indian version of MIT. And if you go on YouTube and type in IIT versus MIT, it is embarrassing how much more advanced the graduates of IIT are over MIT. 60 minutes to the study on it. Very, very interesting. But I'm in India, and speaking to these guys, and I'm having conversations with these guys, and we're going back and forth, and what are you going to do here? What's going to happen here? What are you going to do with that? And what were you going to do if you're younger? What are you going to do with this part? How about this part? I said, listen, I'm just telling you guys right now, does prostitution exist in every country? They look at me like, where's this guy going with this? They said, yes. I said, does murders exist in every country? Yes. I says, are there gangsters? Are there bullies in every country? Yes. Are there divorces? Yes. Are there death, cancer, AIDS, drugs? Yes. I said, now let me ask you a different question. Does hard work in every country? Yes. Does reading books work in every country? Yes. Does constantly improving yourself work in every country? Yes. Does learning and studying human nature work in every country? Yes. Does learning how to speak and communicate with people in the way that they will respond to your work in every country? Yes. I said, I trust principles. And so as long as you bank on principles, you literally have nothing else to worry about, because anything that happens to you is out of your control. One day you get diagnosed with cancer. Okay, I can't control that. I mean, I'm not happy about it. I want to spend as much time in the world to watch my kids grow and experience all the magical moments in their lives, but that's not something I can get upset about. I don't have control over it. But if I apply the right principles that are effective in any country, in any city, in any state, I'm going to get results. And as long as I bank on that, I don't have to overthink, and I don't have to stress or have anxiety attacks or panic attacks, because eventually the odds are everything's going to work out in my favor.
Speaking of principles, have you read Principles by Ray Dalio?
Absolutely. That's a must read for everybody. No doubt.
Awesome. It's a great book. So here's a different question for you. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I mean, you just look at the painting that I have right behind me right now as I'm speaking to you. I don't know if you've seen the painting in my office. I had a painter named Brent Hale. I commissioned him to do this work for me. It's 6 feet by 12 feet. And in the painting, it's all over Valuetainment online. You can go see it. If you go on the YouTube channel, you will see me in the middle and the back. Everybody in this painting is dead. I'm standing in the back in this vault. It's a library with a bunch of books with some hidden messages, like 20 different hidden messages in this painting. And in this vault of a bank that we've turned into a library, it's myself standing up. To my right is Tupac. To my left is Ayrton Senna, the race car driver from Brazil. Sitting down right in the middle is Reza Shah Pahlavi, the son of Reza Khan and the father of Reza Pahlavi, the former, king of Iran. To his right is Abraham Lincoln. To Lincoln's right is John F. Kennedy. Then Einstein is sitting right next to Lincoln, right next to Kennedy. And then on the opposite side is Milton Friedman and Martin Luther King. That pretty much answers your question for you on whom I'd love to have a conversation with for a few hours. And there's one empty seat in the painting, and that one will be revealed in a fiction book that's already finished that I'll most likely publish and unveil to the world in the next 2 to 3 years.
Should I not tell them that it's me?
It's funny. No, you're alive, man. You got to be dead to be in this painting. So.
All right, definitely not me. Then I take that back. So just interesting perspective of having over 100 interviews now, and the number one answer to that question is actually Abraham Lincoln. That's
interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and I think it's a premise behind the no quit living concept and company, and I think it speaks a lot about probably our listeners and their desire to get involved with and follow these things. So I wanted to change lanes for a minute to what I call our hot seat questions. So very simple. The only thing we ask is if you just spit out the first answer that comes to mind.
Sure, let's do it.
So if you had one last meal, you could only choose one thing, what would that be?
Black caviar from Caspian Sea.
Awesome. Favorite sport?
To watch and play, probably basketball.
Good man. Favorite team?
The Lakers by far.
Do you have an all-time favorite book?
Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill.
Great book. All-time favorite movie?
That's a tough one. If I had to pick one, it's going to be a weird one. It's just because I've seen it 100 times and it impacted my life the most. It's Cocktails, which they say it's the worst movie Tom Cruise has ever played in.
My favorite movie of all time is A Few Good Men, with Tom Cruise. So that's something.
That's a ridiculous movie.
Favorite singer or band?
Favorite singer or band? I mean, it's probably going to be Tupac. I graduated in '96. Tupac's, and I know he's not a band or a singer. He's a hip hop artist, but it'd probably be Tupac.
Can't go wrong with Tupac.
Nope.
If you were in a foxhole and you could only pick one person to have your back, who would that be?
Jeffrey Bradford.
Awesome. So wanted to ask you for a minute. You wrote a book, Drop Out and Get Schooled, and I was wondering if you could just give us a very quick synopsis of why you wrote that book and what it means to you.
Well, I just think it's time for us to question our educational system. Everything is changing. Think about what has changed the most in the last 20 years, okay? In the last 20 years, the world is no longer big. Whether you live in a small town of 1,500 people, or you live in a city of 10 million people, or you live in a country with 1.5 billion people, China, everybody is officially living in a big world. Everybody is, okay? Everybody is. Second thing, it's no longer 6 degrees of separation. You're actually a lot closer in, degrees of separation with the president. If you were to go through your social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's connected with the president. So the degrees of separation with us has gotten smaller. It's no longer a big deal to run into a celebrity. Back in the days, you would hear a celebrity share their opinions maybe once a quarter. Today, you hear a celebrity share their opinion every single day on Twitter, which means the value of their opinion is no longer the same as it used to be 20 years ago or 30 years ago. While all these things change, speeds change. You can get a hold of me like this. 20 years ago, Chris, you and I may never meet each other. 20 years ago, you and I may never talk to one another. 20 years ago, you may never know about me. I may never know about you. But today, speeds changed, communications change, contexts change, the size of the world's change, but our educational system is still the same. So today, you mean to tell me I still need 4 years to go to college to get a 4-year degree, while every 3 to 6 months something changes about technology, AI, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, social media, the way food is being delivered, the way online education is being delivered, the way all this stuff is happening. We still need 4 years to get a bachelor's degree, and we keep giving these colleges and universities trillions of dollars of money and debt that we have no choice but to pay back. No choice but to pay back, and especially in America. So you file a bankruptcy, you can have your house in there, your car in there, your credit cards in there, but you cannot have your school loan in there. Why are universities protected? What is so special about universities that they have to get my money that while I'm filing bankruptcy, I cannot have my school or college loan in there? And by the way, I'm not speaking from experience. I don't have a college degree. I don't have a 2-year degree. I dropped out of college. The moment I realized how much money they wanted from me and how many years I had to go to school, I said, listen, you're not going to get me now. I think the 4-year degree needs to become 18 months. We don't need to say a 4-year degree. It still can be a bachelor's degree and be done in 18 months. I don't need to take 60% of the classes that you're making me take so you make more money off of. You think 80% of students are really paying attention to a physics class? Really? I think the people that pay attention to physics class are people that are interested in physics. And people that are paying attention to U.S. history is because they're interested in U.S. history. And people that are paying attention to, world history or journalism are because they're interested in those topics. Now, let's talk about other topics that they're not being talked about. We're not talking about sex enough. We're not talking about taxes enough. We're not talking about marriage enough. These are all decisions that we're going to make. We're not talking about 1003, when you buy a house, how much down payment, how much income, how much debt, all that. We're not talking about that stuff. We're not talking about finances. We're not talking about exercise. We're not talking about specifics about politics. Should I be a Democrat or a Republican? Every single university professor nowadays, 80% of them is leaning towards one side. So you're only hearing politically from one side. I'd much rather have a school where if you went to my university, I would bring a happily married person and a happily divorced person and debate why your decision is a better decision. And a person that's never been married before, but they're all happy with the decision they made. And I would allow the 200 students to ask them questions and say, go away, go ask whatever questions we got. Why do you think being married is the right decision? Well, because God created us to procreate and find somebody else. And so why do you believe that, being single is the way to go? Because I believe monogamy is absolutely insane and it's forcing me. So why do you believe that now you got a divorce, that being single is the best decision? Because I believe it's difficult enough for me to be able to control myself, let alone another human being to be married to and stay happy and make them happy and make me happy. I think the best way to do is this. Great. Hey, kids, guess what? Make a decision for yourself. Here's a Republican, here's a Democrat, here's an independent, here's a libertarian. Go debate, ask them questions. Here's a person that believes in socialism. Here's a person that believes in communism. Here's a person that believes in capitalism. Debate, but that's not how the educational system is set up. It's set up in a way that they're giving one opinion lopsided to you. And you have no choice but taking. You know exactly. If you go to Duke, what you're going to be taught, you know exactly what happens if you go to BYU, and you know exactly what's going to be taught if you go to UC Berkeley. You just know it. You know what's going to be taking place. So I think we need to make a lot more noise about this educational system that we had. I wrote a book called Drop Out and Get Schooled, and I make a case in the book why I believe 70 to 80% of current college students need to drop out.
I appreciate you being as candid as you were on that topic. And before we went live, we briefly spoke about that. But I think many things you said you're spot on. And I'm not sure, haven't done the research that you have as far as the actual number of months being 18 as opposed to 4 years. But one of the things that I could not agree more with was the fact that if you have students that are able to study things that they want, they're going to A, enjoy college more, B, they're going to be more focused, and C, they're probably going to end up being more successful as opposed to having to take certain requirements and other things. So I definitely agree with you. And then the other thing which you didn't mention, which for me is the cost of college. Inflation and interest has not been growing a fraction of what college has. And it's interesting where now the online courses and the online schools and universities are being so much more attended because of the fact that A, it's more economical, but B, as you mentioned, you can actually study exactly what you want.
Yeah, no doubt. So look, I'm not telling you have all the answers. All I'm saying is let's get a group of people that all are willing to debate this topic, and let's figure out a better system that works, that's more effective, that's an updated version with today's times rather than 30 years ago.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I think the concept of debating, some people look at it as fighting, and I could not agree more, is having open dialogue and debate is what we need to do, not only as a world, but more importantly as a country. And one of the things I just wanted to touch on that you mentioned is the concept of 6 degrees of separation. One of the things we often talk about at No Quit Living is we believe that you're 1 degree separated from your greatness or 1 degree away from that person. And in today's day and age of technology and how it continues to advance, and as you mentioned, AI and all the other things that are changing, we honestly believe as a company that you are 1 degree away from that person or 1 degree away from your greatness. The question is, are you willing to put in the effort and the time and the commitment that it takes to get there?
Yes, I agree.
So I wanted to ask you if there's anything exciting that you're working on or anything that's coming out soon that you'd like to share with our listeners.
I'm working on a lot of things right now that's exciting. I can tell you that our YouTube channel has had a major surge the last 30 days. I think we got 67,000 subscribers in the last 30 days alone. It took us 3.5 years to get our first 67,000. We got 67,000 just in the last 30 days. So wow. The moment Valuetainment, I think it's at 560,000 subs right now. The moment Valuetainment crosses 1 million subs, we'll be doing our first live event where we'll be going A through Z of running a business. When I mean A through Z, I'm talking about raising money. I'm talking about compliance. I'm talking about hiring, firing, recruiting talent. We'll have a 2.5-day live event together where we'll sit down and go through your business plan and bring in the right folks. This is not going to be, hey, I'm a motivational speaker. No. This is like, let's sit down, get, take the things out and put a plan together and talk logistics, logically with you and emotionally at the same time, and figure out a way for you to become a strong entrepreneur. So everyone's been requesting that for 3 years. And most people don't realize I run a full-time financial services firm called PHP Agency. You and I briefly talked about it. That grew from 66 agents to 5,400 agents. And recently, Oscar De La Hoya became an investor. So did Gabriel Brenner, who is the first Mexican-born professional sports owner in America. He owns the Houston Dynamo, as well as Atalaya Group, which is a big fund out of New York, a $5 billion fund that invested into our company. You can see all the details on Crunchbase. So I run that full-time. But the Valuetainment side's gotten so big and it's getting so much attention that we'll be doing our first live conference 90 days after the YouTube channel crosses 1 million subs. So that definitely is something I'm looking forward to.
That's awesome. And for our listeners that would like to connect with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do so?
You can go on YouTube, type in the word entrepreneur, and you'll see Valuetainment everywhere. And that's our channel. So subscribe there and join the notification squad. And you can find me on Instagram. And I would say I respond back to 80% of messages I get on Instagram. And you'll find me on Patrick Bet David.
No, I definitely can say you do, because that's how we connected. And then the last question, Patrick, is do you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Just don't overthink. Don't overthink about what other people are doing, especially in today's. My son the other day, I got a call from school. He's 6 years old, and they said it's the first time ever they called me. They said, you got to come and pick your son up. So I picked him up, and we brought him back. And typically, I'll have a tough conversation with him, but I brought him to the office, and I said, buddy, what's going on? And he started opening up, and I don't know about this, and he got emotional. There's pictures on Instagram. It's pretty. My wife took the picture, and I didn't even know she took the picture until later on that night. She showed me. I've looked at this picture at least 200-300 times. It's a very emotional picture. And I sat down, I spoke with him. I said, buddy, what's going on? And he says, I don't know that. My friends don't like me, and I invited them to our house to complain. I don't know if they like me, and, I don't know about this, and I don't know about that. And I said, buddy, listen, your daddy had a very hard time trying to make everybody happy for a big part of his life, until your daddy realized not everybody likes your daddy. He said, Daddy, people don't like you. I said, of course not everybody likes me. I said, but here's the thing, Pop. I said, it came to a point I realized I'm different and you're different. And you're gonna have some uncomfortable moments when you're different when you're young, but you're going to love being different when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. Just be patient, buddy. Everything's gonna be okay. You live your life. So I'm saying this to you on what I said to my 6-year-old son. 13 years ago, I was at a very strange time of my life, a very difficult breakup. I was dating this girl. We're crazy about each other. She's in the Hollywood business, and we wanted to get married. Didn't work out. I lost everything. I was in debt $49,000. This is back in 2004. How long would that be? 14 years ago. 2003, 15. My gosh, 15 years ago. And just very bad place. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to party. I didn't want to be around my friends. And typically I'm this happy-go-lucky, let's go have a good time, let's enjoy ourselves, and let's party. And I got a hold of these questions, 83 questions. And I said, I gotta go out and look at these questions. I went to a beach, Matador Beach in LA. And I sat there, and for 6 hours, I went through every one of these questions. And once I was done with these questions, I got very clear about who Patrick Bet-David is. The moment I got clear with who Patrick Bet-David is, I started enjoying my own company, and I realized why I like certain people, why I don't like certain people, why I get along with certain people, why I don't get along with certain people, what's the purpose of me being put in this world, what is it that I love, what is it that I hate, what is it that bothers me, and I got clear. And from that moment on, nobody could recognize me the following day. So you can find those 83 questions on my website on patrickbetdavid.com, and it's called the Ultimate Self-Discovery Questionnaire.
That's awesome, and I truly appreciate your candor, and I just wanted to thank you for not only your time, but also what you shared with us, and I definitely, hopefully look forward to speaking with you and connecting again soon.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode number 99. Patrick definitely delivered today, and I hope you appreciate both his advice as well as his candor. Patrick is very open and honest, and I really enjoyed speaking with him. When it came to speaking about his book, Drop Out and Get Schooled, Patrick has some very interesting thoughts on the current status of college in the United States. Whether you agree with him or not, Patrick delivered his opinion professionally with some very interesting statistics. Patrick also touched upon the importance of reading and the positive impact it has had on his life. That is something has become a staple throughout our No Quit Living podcast. Patrick mentioned 3 or 4 different times during today's show that why it is so important to trust your principles. I think that is something we can all try and adapt into our lives, sticking to our principles as opposed to following others. In his closing remarks, Patrick spoke about the importance of having open dialogue. Even though he has strong opinions, Patrick believes in open dialogue and the importance of learning from others. To sum up today's episode, I challenge our listeners to flip the switch when it comes to how you look at others if and when their opinions and beliefs differ from yours. I feel that there has never been a more important time in our country for us to listen to others and try to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. It does not mean that you need to agree with them or change what you truly believe, but try and be open to understanding why they feel the way that they feel. For our call to action today, very simply, if and when you have a conversation with someone and their opinion differs from you, have an open dialogue. Listen to their perspective and try to understand as opposed to just preparing your argument to dive into the second they stop speaking. Listen more, argue less, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.